Andy, were you a George Foreman grill person?
I was a George Foreman grill fan. I was a George Foreman fan all around.
Yeah. I mean, regrettably, he passed away, and but there's a lot of good memories come up of George Foreman. I had a grill. I had one of those grills. It was kind of
Yeah.
like that perfect like college thing, you because you couldn't have a stove or anything, but you could heat up this thing and but yet he was also like he made his name because he was a champion boxer, like a heavyweight champion. I think sometimes
Over so many years, Dave. I mean,
yeah.
a champion in his youth when he should have been champion, and then a champion when he like definitely shouldn't have been champion anymore, but he still somehow managed to do it. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, he was quite a left an indelible mark on the landscape there, from his sports days to his George Foreman Grills days to his because he battled his weight too. I mean, I know that was a big thing, but anyways, good George Foreman grill thing. So, did you have a good weekend, Andy?
I did. I had a good weekend. It was a little bit of sort of rest and recovery here this weekend, trying to get some things done and get caught back up. It was a long week last week and sort of just coming out of that over the weekend, I think. But it was good. I got to hear from my both my sons, which is always a joy, but I got to hear from my son down at basic training who's maybe having too good of a time right now, for basic training.
What?
His voice sounded rough. He's been yelling and screaming and having fun, but he was talking, recounting his time on the rappel tower, obstacle course, gas chamber, and he's been put in a leadership position, and he's just having a great time. So it's fun to know that he can go to basic training and enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah. Are they still doing the stress cards there, Andy? I don't know if they.
I didn't ask about stress cards out, so I didn't ask that question. He did not seem stressed, so I
Yeah.
don't think he was filling them out.
Well, that's good. That's good. The gas chamber is always a good rite of passage, isn't it? So,
That's right.
all right, Andy, let's get into it. I'll start with a little on my weekend, Andy. So I went back up to Pennsylvania. It's been a couple weeks since I was up there with my dad's funeral, but started to clear the house out, right? Start to get everything ready because we have to sell the house. Obviously, nobody lives in Gettysburg. I mean, none of our family lives in Gettysburg, so try to clear that out and get it ready for sale. And if anybody's in the market for a house in Gettysburg, just hit me up. But um, this time, like I think we've done a pretty good job in the main house. We got to get rid of some furniture and stuff, but we'll take care of that. But we attacked the garage this weekend, Andy, and it was like I had shared before about finding coins and ammunition
Yeah,
and all this
yeah.
other stuff in the other house, in the main house, but the garage was something different. And my dad had like probably five partially used or not used bottles of motor oil, a lot of like pesticides and plant feeders and all this other stuff, like just bags and bags of this stuff. And and I'm like, what, how did he accumulate this over time? And I would have wanted to get rid of some of that, but then Andy, the big thing was I started finding like I knew he had a lot of tools. Like my grandfather worked on a farm. They had a lot of tools. They
Yeah.
did their own like auto repairs and stuff, and so they had a lot of stuff. But that got when my grandfather passed away, that was passed down to my dad. But it was passed down and just put in the garage.
Yeah.
And like it's all old stuff. And then I started finding like the hatchets and the axes and
Sounds like a horror movie, Dave.
the sledgehammers, Andy. And I'm sitting there like, I mean, it's all just in these big bins of tools that clearly haven't been used for years. But I was thinking of that scene from Violent Night, Andy, when Santa's in the shed and he finally has to confront all of these people and he finds the sledgehammer and all those tools in the garage to just massacre these attackers. I posted on Blue Sky, but that's all I could think about. I was like, Santa would have had a great time in my dad's garage because there was a ton of shit there that he could have used to just wail away on people. So it was a fun time, Andy. So
Yeah, I mean, it sounds dangerous. I think some of that stuff, like for your dad, those tools from his father, probably not only had he used them and labored away with them, but they probably had some emotional significance to him, because of that time served, on the farm working. And so he probably couldn't part with them. And now for you, they're like family heirlooms, but it's like, are these family heirlooms I want? Do I need to keep
Yeah.
these in my family, or are these just, junkers?
Like I just can't like I just can't envision a time when I'm gonna need an axe or a hatchet or like another type of saw.
Yeah,
And so like what do I do with this? Like
yeah,
so like and who uses hatchets and axes in a day-to-day life like they used to do anymore? I don't know. I mean it is a struggle though because in the garage was also other things like things that we were pulling out where the plastic bag when we were grabbing it was deteriorating in our hands. So it's
yeah,
clearly been in there for some time. And you're just sitting there like, okay, like yes, this had I like there were some things with clearly sentimental value. Like we had a good time remembered. Oh, you remember that when we did this and did
yeah,
that. But is that enough to bring it home with you and
yeah.
say, where am I going to put this in my house today? So
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. You want to respect the memories and the significance of things, but if you're like me, like you also want to get rid of all the junk you possibly can. Like I love to purge
yep.
my home. Like I've been working through my basement as we've talked before on this podcast, like for many months. It's slowly, incrementally. I'm just trying to get rid of shit, and I love the feeling of having the Salvation Army come and pick stuff up, or a bulk trash pickup, and I'm like, yes, it's like ripping off a scab. I'm like, yes, that's so miserably satisfying for me. And yet there's things that like my wife's asking, hey, can we put this in the garage? Can we put this in the storage room? I'm like, do we need to? Like we'll probably never use this again. She's like, well, but we might. Like
Yeah.
we might. And so there's things that are accumulating that I know I will never be able to get rid of, that we will never use again. That someday my children have to come in here and be like, we had an ice cream maker, like we had one of the like we had this, we had that. And it's like, yeah, we had it, and I couldn't throw it away, and so now you get to throw it away. Like stuff just accumulates, man.
Yeah, I love nothing more than taking things to like Goodwill or taking things to the dump. And
Yeah,
like it is I mean I will purge my garage twice a year.
yeah.
I still do something like, well, that ice chest, like that's
I might
really
use it.
nice. I like do we like but we haven't used it in 10 years. What makes you think we're gonna use it you know, well, there's the one-off that somebody
Yeah,
could use it or would want it later in life and blah blah blah. And it just gets it's tough because like you don't want to like like get rid of that history. You don't want to like dismiss that history, but also I don't know. So
no, that's fair. I mean, I know I've got things, Dave, things we took to the beach every year with my children growing up that are not really top quality anymore, and will
yeah.
definitely not be used ever again by anybody. But like seeing them puts a smile on my face, and it brings
Yeah.
back a flood of memories. I'm like, I don't like. There's room in the garage to hold on to this. Like, it's fine. It makes me smile, 3, 4 times a year when I see it. Like, that's fine. I'll keep them. You know what I mean? It can take up space for now. So some things I think we'll never throw away. Some things we definitely should throw away. And it sounds like you get yourself a nice arsenal of classical weapons and farm equipment up there. So
Yeah.
we just pause before you take it to the dump.
Yeah, yeah. We're gonna try to get some antique person to come through and say, "Hey, look, does anybody like?" Because some of that stuff, there's like an old wooden ladder that, like, yeah, nobody's gonna use that wooden ladder anymore,
Yeah.
but maybe they like it for decorative stuff, So I've seen people want to do that farmhouse motif sometimes. I don't know. But the other thing I was getting on, Andy, and this probably isn't going to be a full segment, but it may be. We'll see where it goes. But as I was also, in the house, my parents had a section where the house was like pictures and memories of their parents and grandparents.
Yeah.
And like also like the pictures of their houses that they grew up in. And it wasn't like just junky stuff. I mean, it was like they put it in nice frames and they had a little section for my mom's side and then my dad's side.
Yeah,
And again, it wasn't more than just a couple shelves on a bookcase, but it was present in the house. And I remember when, growing up, going to my grandparents' houses, they had pictures of their parents and so on and so forth.
yeah.
And like today, yeah, we have family pictures around, but it's not as much as it was. And I wonder, like, have we lost our sense of we've talked about lost a sense of community, and I don't think it's necessarily that, but lost a sense of our heritage, our family histories that we don't even. I don't mean to put like a 3 by 4 picture of your parents in the center of your dining room,
Yeah, yeah,
kind of thing. But like, have we lost some of that in trying to get like the Pottery Barn motif? And like, we want our houses to be these picturesque places. And the reality is that by doing that, we forget the lessons we learned growing up. We forget my dad was a big financial, and it came from his parents who were depression kids.
yeah.
And he wanted to instill like savings and investing smartly with your money and all this other stuff. And I just wonder, like, have we lost that when we try to remove them from our house? I don't know. I don't know if I'm making sense on
No,
this
no,
one.
it does, David. And I agree. Like I know my mother had nice pictures of, both her and my father's, families and what we had, right? Because, photos only go back so far for a lot of us, generationally. And so there was nice pictures of, grandparents and whatnot. And I think you're right. I think today we do tend to display as less because I think, again, you're right. We tend to focus on like right now, like what's going to make that whatever Instagram photo look good right now. And I think it's very sort of representative of the times that we're in where we don't know history, we don't know our past, we don't know where we came from, we don't know why things are the way they are, and we just assume that we know better today. And we don't need the past, we don't need history, we don't need our parents' wisdom, our grandparents' wisdom, our constitutional wisdom, our founders' wisdom. We're just going to do what we think makes sense right now because we're smarter and better. And then we look back on years past with these rose-colored, delusional, inaccurate, lenses, thinking there's some golden age that may have existed, which has never existed. And we just don't have a good grasp of reality anymore. And I think those things that seem little, like just respecting where we come from and who we come from, and honoring that with a simple picture or other reference, I think it does sort of connect us to a past and help us understand who we are, and we do a lousy job of that. And I think it's representative of a much bigger issue in our American society that we just generally don't give a shit about those that came before us, and we just think that everything that is present and modern is smart, and we're so sure of it, and it leads to a lot of unnecessary failures from our homes to our politics, Dave.
Yeah, and this is my opportunity to shit on the boomers again. Like, so, like, I do believe fundamentally, like, that generation, in all the ways that they wanted to correct how things were with their parents and how hard they were, and all that, the lessons learned from the great, that generation really fucked us up for this because it became about individualism and it became about commercialism and materialism, all things that we should be pushing back against. Like, look, I think we both live in very modest houses within our means, but there are these houses don't exist much anymore because everyone's trying to build bigger and more and get the most out of all these things. And for what reason, for what stake, and I just really I think that's where we lose our sense of community as we've tried to get bigger and have more and have all of this thing to signify our wealth. We lose that sense of community and we lose that sense of upbringing that got us to where we really the country did do a lot of good things where we focused on other people. There was a war on poverty at one time in this country, Andy.
Yeah,
There was a war on, discrimination and stuff. And all of those were the right. There was a war against fascism, Andy. We fought a global war on this. And now we don't stay. I like again. I'll go back to this line from Hamilton. What do we stand for? Like,
yeah.
But like we're if we're not willing to do what do we actually as a country stand for? America first? No fucking shit. Like, yeah, we should be thinking about our people. But we don't even do that, Andy. We're not even fighting the right fights here. And that's just where I think fuck that boomer generation. I'm sorry. Like that's fuck them. So
Yeah, there's some things in there that I might push a little on. Like, I think individualism, like I celebrate that. I think it's part of America that we
to a
can,
degree, I
yeah,
agree. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but I think there is a sort of disconnect from history, and I think boomers didn't necessarily do a great job of teaching historical lessons to the future. It was very much, we're going to flip the tables and be modern and change the world, and not necessarily clarity of like why some of those things were being done. And it left, I think, a lot of the sort of chaos of the times because again, Gen X, Gen Z, millennials, like we're dumb. Like we're dumb generations that don't understand our history. And I think that was a failure of the boomers. I think our schools don't teach history as well. We don't understand. You look around right now, you look at the stupid conversations we're having in politics right now. We don't understand civics. And so I think that there was a disconnect between, I'll give boomers credit. I'll try and be, that I think there's a lot of good revolution and well-intended revolution that happened, right? They wanted to change the world, make it a better place, a fairer place, bring a lot of good things to the world. And there was a lot of really like bad stuff from the past. There was a lot of ugliness, hidden issues. We didn't talk about things. A lot of people were denied like the ability to be who they were publicly. So there was I think, a good upheaval, but it was a messy upheaval that left us dumber and in some ways worse off, even as we made progress in other areas. And we're kind of dealing with all that shit today, and the reactions to some of that long-term fallout bring things like a longing for some delusional glorious golden age that never existed. And that's kind of what we're seeing today, both sometimes in the public square, sometimes in the church, like a longing for a time that never really was. And the memories that people have of it, or the thoughts of memories that they have of it, don't represent all the terrible things went along with it. And so it's tough. The boomers could have done things a lot better, but I can also appreciate that they were breaking a long history of bad things too.
yeah, and look, for people who's like we are dumber, like our youth are like falling further and further behind. We talked about the happiness scale last week, but like there's concerning numbers within like our education system. And again, it's not because of the failing of the Department of Education. There's a lot of other things that contribute to all of that. But maybe that's a topic for another day. But Andy, I think like failing to meet the moment is a thing that we do. I you forwarded me a podcast to listen to is from Tom Friedman.
Yeah,
It was an opinion piece on the New York Times. It was Trump is a small man in a big time.
yeah,
And it talked about like failing to recognize, like while we identify maybe the first order thing, we're solving a first order problem, the second and third order effects of these actions are just they're just too dumb enough to know how to do it. And Trump really is a small man in a big time. And I say that as the vice president's wife and a couple other individuals are traveling to Greenland this week.
yeah,
Like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, and again, we're just stirring up issues here where one doesn't exist. The same thing with like Canada. We're stirring up these issues for what? For what purpose? Does anybody really think Greenland's going to become a United States territory or property? Does anybody really think that the Canada is going to be the 51st state? Trump was on a Fox News interview over the last couple of days, and like it's the most wildly fucking unbelievable shit I've ever heard in my entire life.
yeah,
Even the Fox News, like Laura Ingraham, I think was the one who did it. Like even she was like incredulous to some of what he was saying. And I think we're getting to this point now where like, no, okay, no, serious Greenland, serious Canada, like you're still fighting that Canada was always going to be the 51st state. That was actually said, So I don't know, Andy. It's a challenging time. So
It is, Dave. I want to give a shout and thanks to our friend Strati. I had a chance to visit with Strati, listens every episode, always gives generous feedback, and he passed that podcast on to me. I heard it, and I wanted to share it with you because that was really a very good summary of one of the biggest challenges. And I want to come back to that in just a minute, but the whole Greenland thing, like the Greenland government is like pissed they were just
yeah,
sending people there, right? They're like, this is an act of aggression, right? And we're like, going into their face saying we want to own you and control you. It is hugely disrespectful. I mean, our words, rhetoric, and actions towards Canada and Greenland especially, but Panama and Mexico and Europe, like it is reprehensible behavior. It is disgusting. We are not a friend of the world anymore. Like we are a bully. We are a threat, right? And we are putting ourselves in the same category of nation as China, as Russia. It's hard to fully grasp like that's our reality today. And regardless of what happens post Trump, our friends will never look at us the same way. Like they'll never look at us the same way, and it's shameful. It's shameful the damage that's being done right now to America standing in the world and for future generations. It is shameful and disgusting. And Usha Vance, if there was any like question like, oh, maybe she's decent, she's just trying to she's trying to reel in her husband. Like, no, if you're going on this trip, you suck. You fucking suck. So she can suck an ass. As far as Donald Trump in this podcast, I strongly encourage folks to check it out. Right, the podcast, like you said, Dave, is Trump is a small man in a big time, and lots of things resonated to me about that. But the one that sort of came to me as I listened to it, Thomas Friedman talks about the Trump administration basically living in a first order mentality, meaning they see this is the problem I see, this is the response I'm going to have, and it's as simple as that. And there's no additional thought to the cascading effects of those thoughts, the second order, third order effects of decisions we make today, like threatening Canada every fucking day with becoming the 51st state of the United States of America. There's no thought to consequences. It's just, hey, I want this, I want that. I want more minerals, I want Greenland. I'm going to tell Greenland we're going to have them one way or the other. It's limited thinking, and that sort of thought, took me to the idea of these politicians peddling simple problems and simple solutions, and that it's never simple, right? Like we've talked about like lifting weights and losing weight, Dave. Calorie deficit, you lose weight. Simple. Like there's some things that are clear and you can understand them and apply them and done. When it comes to politics and geopolitics and international relations, when it comes to economic challenges, egg prices, it's never simple. Like there's always a lot of reasons why things are the way they are, and our responses have to be thoughtful and nuanced, and the effects of those decisions are complex and cascading. And so when a politician wants to come and say, "Hey, it's this, it's DEI, it's this person, it's that person," it's really simple. One of the phrases I've come to hate more than anything else, Dave, it's just common sense. If that's what you're hearing, and simple solutions and simple problems, it's absolute bullshit peddling from whoever's telling you that. It's either bullshit peddling or they're genuinely ignorant and they really think it's that simple. And it just isn't. We live in a complex world that demand complex analysis, complex responses, thoughtful responses, and thinking through more than the immediate response to what I do. That's what a 3-year-old does. I'm hungry, give me this. They don't think about the impacts of their decisions. And that's the politics we're living in today. And that's just not the reality around us. And so when politicians, pastors, whoever's like offer simple problems, simple solutions, they are selling absolute bullshit or ignorance. And if we embrace that, and that's the reality we want simple solutions because again, we don't understand our history, Dave, going back to the pictures on the wall. We want to live in the moment and think things happen in the vacuum of the moment we're in. If that's the best we can do as a nation, candidly, we're stupid people, and this is a stupid time, and I don't have optimism about the future if that's reality. I don't think that's our reality. I think that's what the media is peddling to us and what politicians are peddling to us, and we have to overcome that challenge. Like we have to become more thoughtful, more deliberate, and more aware of the consequences and challenges of the times that we live in.
Yeah, no, it's exactly right. And I mean, it's those things where simple things of very you mentioned it, not being a friend, we're not a friend of the world today. Well, what does that mean, Andy? Is it means these countries that we have guaranteed and we said, hey, give up your nuclear weapons because we're going to protect you when your enemies come. And then when those enemies come, we're like, yeah, sorry, we really don't want to get involved in that.
Yeah,
Well, that causes them to say, hey, well, maybe we need to protect ourselves. Great. Yeah, yeah, they should protect themselves. They should not have to rely on the United States. But what does that mean, Andy? Nuclear proliferation. We fought for years to curtail the number of countries who had nuclear weapons. Well, now maybe maybe Korea needs nuclear weapons because they're concerned about what's going to happen. Maybe Japan needs nuclear weapons because they're concerned about Chinese aggression. Maybe Ukraine needs to bring it back their nuclear arsenal. I mean, these are things that, and I'm just using that because that was an example used in the podcast too, and I encourage people to listen to it. But it's a short one; it's only 20 minutes. But it's I think it's just really meaningful, and yeah, politics is bullshit peddling, right, Andy? I mean, that's what it is. And it's just challenging it. So,
yeah, yeah. It's a sad time, Dave. I mean, we complex times require complex thought, right? And it is a complex time. Like there's a
yeah.
lot of things happening in our environment that like are really difficult issues, and like we are not doing a good job of being thoughtful, and we want to pledge. And like to be fair, this isn't limited to Donald Trump, right? When the Democratic Party wants to say, hey, we're just going to tax billionaires, like there might be merit to that, just like there's some merit to what Trump says. But it's not as simple as that. Like the
Right.
issues, the challenges are more complex than that. And the decisions to do certain things, to tax, to do, like those have consequences. We just need to like stop accepting quick solutions and think that's going to be the panacea that we're looking for. Like we have to think, we have to stop, we have to be engaged, we have to be active and involved citizens and care about the consequences of our actions, not just to ourselves, but to our nation and to our posterity. And we suck at that. So, not the most optimistic note to wrap the pod up with, Dave, but I think we can't.
I think it's good though.
Yeah, think we can't. I think we can't do it. I think we, as people, have a chance to do better and be better. You know, we need better leadership. We need a more involved group of citizens, and we're seeing that. You know, in a lot of different ways now. As people come out to fight and they argue their frustration with the Trump administration. So we're seeing some of that, but it needs to be sustained and become something meaningful and again thoughtful. Like we need to be thoughtful and we need to be educated. Our schools need to do better. Our society needs to do better. Parents, we need to do better. Like we need to talk with our kids, we need to have real conversations. There's a lot of layers to this, so it's probably
Yeah.
something we'll come back to. I mean, there's a long, you know, a lot of things that go into this, but like I really hope people stop and like we cannot accept simple solutions to complex problems.
There you go. Good way to wrap up this pod, Andy, for sure. And good start to the week, I think. It's a good one, Andy. So on Wednesday, let's talk a little like I got caught up on Daredevil
Oh
this week.
yeah.
And so maybe we'll have to do a little catch up on that and the NCAA tournament. Hopefully you're still alive in your pool here, Andy. But we can catch up on that and what's going to happen in the Sweet 16 this coming week on Wednesday. But with that, Andy, I will catch up with you next time.